Hey guys, what's up? It's Finch here and we're back for another Metagame Monday. Today we're going to be discussing Urshifu-Single Strike, also known as the Fighting Dark Wicked Blow Urshifu, and Urshifu-Rapid Strike, also known as the Water Fighting Surging Strike Urshifu. Both of these Pokemon have established a place in the SSOU metagame. We're going to analyze how good they are. Are they too good for the SSU metagame? Are they not quite good enough for the SSU metagame? What they might do well against, what they might do poorly against, and also anything else that they might do in the context of the battles that you guys play every single day in the SSOU metagame, of course. I also want to note that I'm aware this probably is not like the most high effort or high priority metagame Monday. We've discussed Urshifu on various OU lives where I've used both Urshifu-Single and Urshifu-Rapid Strike. In addition to that, I've also made videos on if I believe it's broken or not in the past, but I combined it largely with other elements in the metagame. This is a video specifically dedicated about the Urshifu form, so I figured it'd be nice to get this out there. And also, just full disclosure, I haven't had a ton of Metagame Monday ideas that have been great fits recently. I want to keep it going until DLC 2, because then they're going to have a ton of ideas flow in. But if you guys have any ideas for Metagame Mondays, definitely let me know in the comments below, guys. I mean, for every 10 ideas I receive, maybe 3 or 4 of them will be usable. And that's fine, because if you guys give me 100 ideas, then that's, enough to keep us going for a long-ass time. So my priority here is to serve you guys and really help everyone understand the metagame and have the most fun with their hobbies, so that would go a long way towards helping me achieve that goal. Anyway, so first off, we're going to be discussing Urshifu-Single Strike. Again, that is the fighting type variant of Urshifu. They're both fighting type, Finch. What are you saying? They're the dark type variant of Urshifu, so yeah. The predominantly used one is Urshifu-Single Strike, of course. Wicked Blow is absolutely strong, devastatingly strong. For those of you that don't know what it does, it's 80 base power Dark move with APP. And you're like, oh, okay, that's fine. It's like cool and all, but like, what does it do over Crunch or Darkest Lariat or Knockoff or whatever else you might have? It crits every single time you use it. So that means it's got the equivalent of 120 base power. Now, okay, that's fine, but I can still check it. I can Protect Scout or Baneful Bunker Scout with my Talk specs or whatever you have. No, Unseen Fist means you go through that. So, oh, okay. All of a sudden, you're starting to see why Urshifu-Single Strike is just so extraordinarily strong and threatening. Now, of course, Wicked Blow is not all it has going for it. It also has Close Combat, which is similarly strong, 120 base power. In fact, on average, it's even stronger than Wicked Blow due to the fact that it actually has a chance to critical hit, whereas Wicked Blow is already exhausting that chance to critical hit to get up to 120 base power. 80 times 1.5. So yeah, Close Combat's a little bit stronger, but all intents and purposes, they're the same, and Dark has far less resistances than fighting, so yeah, they go hand in hand either way, though. The only thing that resists both Wicked Blow and Close Combat, of course, are Fairy types. Fairy types such as, Clefable, the Pokemon you see on every single team, largely because Urshifu. Maybe there's more we should dig into in that topic. Maybe, let's think about this for a second. So, if I use Wicked Blow, I'm able to 2-KO things like Toxapex, and I'm able to one-shot things like Slowbro. If I use Close Combat, I'm able to absolutely decimate things like, Hydreigon, 2-KO Komo and Skarmory, etc. So, if that's the case, then how do I check this thing consistently? Well, I'd advise you guys stay tuned if you want my thoughts on that, because we're going to get to that very soon. And no, I don't oftentimes leave people on cliffhangers like that, but I've been noticing that a lot of people have been watching far into the videos, and I want to increase that number even more, so definitely stay tuned for that. But anyway, one part of solving the fairy type quote-unquote issue for Urshifu is, of course, running coverage moves like Iron Head, or if you're less worried about the flinch chance on Clefable and some mid-ground opportunities and more worried about hitting Primarina and Azumarill, Poison Jab works just as well alternatively. And that's great. In the last slot on Choice Banded Urshifu, you can run Sucker Punch for priority, but personally I believe U-Turn's a much better option. You're able to really not inspiration. Also chip things like Life Orb, Combine Clefable into a KO range for Wicked Blow and Close Combat. And also if you're against things like Tangrowth, it makes a very convenient mid-ground move as well. So yeah. Digging a bit deeper though, Choice Band's not the only Urshifu. In fact, if Choice Band was the only Urshifu, you probably could be fine because there are specific defensive cores where you could scout out what it's locking into without taking too much damage, regenerate or heal up, and then you'll be on your merry way to giving it a check. And that's largely what happened earlier in the metagame. That's why Urshifu probably isn't already banned or suspect as is. However, as of, a couple weeks / even months ago now that we're dating back to OLT qualifiers, Life Orb Urshifu became a prominent set. And while there are bulked up sets with Dual Stab plus Sucker Punch, truth be told, there are a whole slew of other Life Orb sets that we've now noticed. The one that perhaps is the most common is the Bulk Up Wicked Blow Close Combat Sucker Punch set, and it is phenomenal. However, the main gripe I have with this set is the inability to touch things like Clefable and Primarina with a neutral attack, as therefore you're incapable of breaking them. Even at +1, you're barely able to 2-KO Clefable. and it's going to kill you in one shot with a Moonblast. So it goes without saying that that's going to be problematic for you. You're going to have to watch the hell out. Moreover, on top of that, there's also Urshifu with a 4 attack set where you drop bulk up. You say, okay, I'm fine. So I can get 2 kills, especially with rocks up on things like Hippowdon, Tangrowth, Toxapex, etc. with Adamant plus Life Orb. And since you've got Sucker Punch, it helps you get faster threats, so you're less worried about running Jolly. All in all, just plays together nicely. And again, Iron Head or Poison Jab, you can pick your poison, if you will, for hitting fire types. And yeah, and then also there's another set that's interesting that we saw a bit during OLT qualifiers, which foregoes close combat, which means, okay, maybe I'm not going to be getting a one-shot on Ferrothorn or Crawdaunt, which is a bit less relevant in this scenario. But with Wicked Blow, Iron Head, Sucker Punch, I'm able to threaten all the same things, and I'm also able to maintain priority while hitting fire types. Now, you can argue, okay, this is awkward against Ferrothorn, awkward against Hydreigon, to which I agree. Personally, I prefer running the 4 attack set to this one, but it's a set that's seen usage, and on specific teams, I think that it has a lot of merit behind it. So yeah, that's another way to play your Urshifu. All in all, with this built-in versatility, coupled with the fact that it's already devastatingly strong, as you saw with 130 some odd attack, and I think it's just 130 actually, right? Yeah, 130 attack. I mean, 97 speed is nothing to scoff at either. And also 100 to 100 physical defense. It goes such a long way towards making it so that Urshifu is one of, if not the most threatening Pokemon in metagame. Now, of course, there are some checks and counters to it. If there was no counterplay to Urshifu, then spoiler alert, it would already be banned like all the other things that roam in Ubers that just have absolutely no counterplay. And honestly, it's only a handful of things that might have no counterplay. Most things, even in Ubers, have some sporadic checks and counters, I'd say. But Urshifu very much is not one of those Pokemon. It has checks, it has counters. The thing is that the counterplay to it is very limited. And in my eyes, that's what makes it broken. So let's go back to the dynamic we alluded to before. Urshifu-Single Strike with Close Complex Wicked Blow. Pretty much the only thing that resists both of them is like Clefable, Weezing Galar, and then, the flimsier fairies, Primarina, Togekiss, Azumarill, even Comfey, which technically speaking is viable now as it's listed in the viability rankings thanks to John W.'s laddering tendencies, if you will. But in all seriousness, if you're forced to use one of Clefable or Weezing on every single team, it's just way too restrictive. And most teams might use a fairy type regardless, and that's fine, but in my personal opinion, the reason why the metagame is so centric around Clefable being on most teams, and the reason why we see things like Toxapex plus Mandibuzz or Kommo-o, whatever it might have you, which we'll get into in a minute, is largely because of Urshifu. And in a sense, that these Pokemon being used a ton and forced on your teams limits the accessibility of other offensive threats. So for example, if I'm forced to use Clefable plus Toxapex or Clefable alone with, a specific defogger like Corviknight on my teams, for example, basically molding my whole defensive core with Urshifu being the first domino to fall that really provokes it to be that way, then all of a sudden, hyper-offensive teams with Rillaboom or Hawlucha are suddenly a lot less, viable and consistent against serious balance players, therefore, restricting their viability. Or hell, you could go down the list. Let's look at other, Pokemon that might be held back because of Urshifu's viability, for example. Crawdaunt, all of a sudden, you see a lot less of it if you're seeing, Baneful Bunker Toxapex or physically defensive Tangrowth and Clefable on most teams, especially with Urshifu being something that's so common to Revenge Kill it and also just be a stronger Dark type. Okay, let's go a bit further. Something like Obstagoon, it's checked and countered largely by the same things in the metagame, but at the same time, it's also facing stiff competition by Urshifu, which is just a stronger Pokemon. But okay, let's say holding back these Pokemon isn't enough, but all of a sudden you're noticing that because we see so much Clefable, things like, Conkeldurr, or, I don't know, Mienshao, or Sharpedo, Tracheon, whatever it might have you, Zarude especially, are seeing so much less usage. Dragapult is, confined to running Thunder Wave sets or Spec sets all the time. Can't run the Will-O-Wisp set. It just goes on and on and on and on. And the fact of the matter is that, yes, you can apply this sort of cause and effect logic to most prominent Pokemon metagame because their usage carves out the way we build our teams. But Urshifu, among all of these Pokemon that are great in the metagame, be it Urshifu, Toxapex, Clefable, or some of the amazing offensive options we have like Hydreigon, Dragapult, Zeraora, Rotom Heat, Volcarona, all these Pokemon at least have multiple, a wider spectrum of checks and counterplay. Even Volcarona does. But when it comes to Urshifu, if you don't want to use multiple Pokemon and go well out of your way, which you might have to regardless, it's basically use Clefable or you resort to using a fringe Pokemon like Weezing Galar. Now I know I list Azumarill, I list Togekiss, I list Primarina, and those are 3 viable OU options, but they aren't even very durable at Urshifu. They're really only able to switch in one time. They don't have the same natural recovery, besides Togekiss, which, by the way, is not living a Wicked Blow into Iron Head unless it's running a very, fringe set. Even then, it might be a roll. And it's like, damn, I'm forced to run Clefable on every single team. And do I ever think why? Well, maybe this is why, and maybe that's kind of screwed up. Maybe that's unhealthy. So maybe Clefable is seeing all the usage, And maybe Urshifu Single Strike's only seeing, 20-25% usage, whatever it might be, but maybe that 20-25% is enough to scare people into accounting for it 100% of the time and using Clefable on, 80% of their teams, whatever it might have you. And the fact of the matter is that being restrictive to that extent is ridiculous. It's unhealthy in my eyes. And we're going to go through all these checks and counters. But first, I wanted to give my honest thoughts on Urshifu Single Strike. In my opinion, if we ban Urshifu Single Strike, then not only will it open the door for so many more offensive threats, but also it'll limit us a lot less defensively as well. And I think that'll be better for balance. I think it'll suddenly make it so that bulky offensive teams are actually viable, because right now it's just so hard to make a bulky offensive team, and it might even help hyper offense, honestly, but it's more of an indirect causation there. Bulky offense and balance is really the main ones I was trying to point on. But yeah, anyway, Clefable and Weezing Galar, again, they're two big checks and counters to Urshifu. They're able to resist both stabs. Of course, they do take super effective damage from Iron Head and you can't get too KO'd, but kind of got a 4-stab prediction, and locking into Iron Head if you're a Choice Bander is not the easiest thing to do. So yeah, they're at least, decent checks, I would say. I wouldn't say anything's too hard counter to Urshifu, though, in all honesty. So yeah. Next up, we have Primarina, Togekiss, Azumarill, and Comfey. Again, they're just 4 complementary fairy types that aren't as durable. Comfey perhaps is the best answer of the 4, but is also by far the least viable of the 4, and probably won't stay in the viability rankings till DLC 2, let alone beyond that. So yeah, then there's also Primarina. It can run bulk to live 2 stab moves, of course, but if it ever runs into Poison Jab, or if it ever, Urshifu gets in for a second time, then you're not actually checking it in the long haul, so it's just a one-time check. Togekiss is okay if it's a Scarf variant, because it's able to revenge kill and maybe take 2 stab moves, but that aside, it's dying to Wicked Blow into Iron Head or Poison Jab, whatever you might be, swing around in the standard set. And if you run any bulk here, then all of a sudden you become very passive and makes it a Togekiss' liability in a lot of other matchups. Then Azumarill, it's slower and it needs to not use like a priority move to kill it, but yet it also doesn't have any recovery besides like rest and protect like Whirlpool set. It's not actually really good against it in all honesty, like especially if it's Poison Jab, but even regardless, you're only checking it one time like Primarina or Togekiss or whatever you might have. So yeah, very shaky checks and counterplay to Urshifu, I would say. Next up, we have a defensive core that I want to hone in on. Now, during the World Cup Pokemon, / during the first couple of weeks of DLC, so let's say from like June through early July, I like to call it the World Cup Pokemon era, because like this is when like people like started like forming their metagame opinions. Even ladder players, like the trends trickle down to the ladder, which is really cool. Something I love about tournaments is that trends trickle down to the ladder, and then ladder trends show in tournaments. And sometimes we like labeling periods like the World Cup Pokemon, but I don't even mean like specifically the World Cup Pokemon, but rather this is like an event that was happening at the time. But I'm like going through ladder, I'm going through tournaments, etc. Like we're looking at all facets of the metagame, not just like, oh, these 8 tournament games that I played this week. No, I'm talking about the thousands and thousands of ladder games that I played on this channel and in my own time that I'm accounting for as well. But during that June into July period, we saw an abundance of cores with things like Toxapex or Amoonguss, plus things like Mandibuzz or Como, for example. And Mandibuzz, in fact, was much more common than Corviknight at the time being. But basically, with Choice Band Urshifu being pretty much the only system used back then, using a Regenerate or Poison type, so if they go for close combat, not only do they take Rocky Helmet, but also you gain Regen out, and it's like you're fine, you wall it. If they go for Wicked Blow, they do a bit over half, but then you Regen out so you could live another hit afterwards, and you go to your Dark Resist like Mandibuzz, and you're fine. And they've got to get the prediction right multiple times, plus take Rocky Helmet each time, and if they ever get it wrong, you get a turn wrong, or you get your Toxapex or Amoonguss in before they get their Urshifu in to gain Regenerator, then it's like, oh crap, I'm screwed. So these cores were actually common enough to where Choice Band Urshifu alone, in my eyes, wasn't very broken, especially given how common these Pokemon were already, regardless. And also the fact that, like, there are tons of different Dark Resists. Like, I'm listing 3 here, but basically any Dark Resist could be here. There are a couple other Pokemon. Like, you could use Tangrowth plus Resistible Stab. You could use, a couple other things as well. So, yeah. This is just kind of like the most common bits of it. And of course, if you're using Hydreigon in this sense as Dark Resist, then you gotta use Roost on it. And yeah. But basically, durable Dark Resist plus durable Fighting Resist with Rocky Helmet Regenerator was the idea, and it was a good core for checking Choice Band. But then, all of a sudden, during, and what again, I like calling old team metagame, which was, more mid-July into August into, present day, people finally started using Life Orb bulk up sets, or even Black Glasses bulk up sets, or just 4 attack sets without Choice Band, and those sets destroyed those cores because you get a bulk up on a switch in, and all of a sudden everything's to a KO, and they can switch a move, or even if it's not bulk up, you can do a KO both, and, it makes it so that it's really hard to keep it in check, if you will. And so all of a sudden, these cores were invalidated, and now, ever since then, I believe that Urshifu's been a problem, especially now that the metagame's more balance-centric, so Urshifu's speed tier is not necessarily held against it. And overall, I believe that right now, Urshifu Single Strike, the dark one, again, the one that with Wicked Blow, if you will, it's quite problematic in the current OU metagame. So yeah, I think we've reached that point where I'm comfortable saying that I'm pretty against Urshifu remaining in the tier. And I actually made a post about this in the metagame discussion thread. Feel free to check that out if you wish. But again, in my opinion, if Urshifu were to get suspected, which unfortunately I'm just one guy, so I can't guarantee that, but I think it would free up the tier for so many different offensive options to actually come into play, and also different defensive structures, and it'd make the metagame just so much more wide open. And I think that'd be a lot of fun. I'm really excited to see more bulky offensive teams come instead of balanced teams. And I know you're like, wait, how does that work? You're banning an offensive Pokemon so more offense could be seen? But think about it. If that offensive Pokemon is forcing specific defensive structures, those structures make it so that you can't use specific offensive Pokemon that lose to those structures. Therefore, it's like either a guessing game or you're accepting losing to the status quo, which is bad because you're going to lose most of your games. So once you're not like stuck using things defensively, all of a sudden offensive stuff unlock each other. It goes hand in hand is basically what I'm trying to say. There's like an offensive section of the metagame and a defensive section of the metagame, and if one of them opens, odds are the other one becomes a lot more wide open as well, and I think that's really cool. And that's been shown over generation to generation, so I'm hoping that we can kind of see a similar type of awakening this generation, if you will. So, yeah. No, anyway, next up we're going to be discussing Urshifu's Single Strike variant, which again, it's the water fighting type. And now this one's a lot more limited, and no one's going to be arguing for it to be banned, and personally, I wouldn't either, but I think it's very viable. In fact, I was very low on it initially, to the point where I thought it was going to drop to UU or UUBL, but the more and more we see of it, the more we realize people have actually been finding great practical applications of it. I've used it a couple times recently, saw a lot of others, be it on tournament, or ladder, in tournaments, or on ladder, or whatever in between you might be seeing. Yeah, I'd say Urshifu-Rapid is not one of the best Pokemon metagame, but it's a very viable one. It's like kind of B rank in the viability rankings, if you will. Anyway, it almost strictly runs Choice Band, and Surging Strike with Choice Band is great if you're not facing something like a Toxapex, or an Amoonguss, or a Slowbro, or whatever have you, and honestly, that's great. But even if you face those things, what's cool is you're able to kind of lure in the same like pool of Pokemon. So let's say I'm facing, be it a Slowbro, or a Toxapex, or a Tangrowth, or an Amoonguss with my Urshifu-Rapid. Let's say you turn into one of them. All of a sudden, every single thing that is like lured in by Urshifu-Rapid Strike, it loses to, Nasty Plot Hydreigon, or Choice Mix Churm, or whatever it might be. And I think that's a really cool dynamic. I think that's something that a lot of teams have been abusing lately. And I think that really validates Urshifu-Rapid Strike as a Pokemon in the metagame right now. So yeah, and as for the moves it runs, again, Surging Strike, it's the signature move for Urshifu-Rapid. It's a 3-hit, always crit move, so basically same equivalent power, roughly, give or take. Again, close combat, wicked blow type of stuff. Yeah. Unfortunately, though, since it's 3 times, Rocky Helmet users abuse it so badly. We'll get into that more later, but yeah, it's also close combat. Aqua Jet, I prefer priority, but you can run a Zen Headbutt in that spot, or you can technically run over U-turn, but U-turn's super important for those matchups I just alluded to, so yeah, and that's basically what all there is to it. Again, same base stats, 100 defense, pretty good, 97 speed, nothing to, shake your head at, it's fine, and 130 attack is, of course, absolutely devastatingly strong, so yeah, I'd say it goes a long way, but in terms of checks and counters, there's a lot more common things. I mean, Amoonguss and Toxapex go from like being one piece of the puzzle against specific sets to all of a sudden hard checks and hard counters in it, as well as Slowbro, Tangrowth, Mantine, they all deal with it very nicely. There's all these Pokemon resist water, besides Mantine, which is absolutely immune to it. Dragon Pulp's not really a great answer. It's too good by Surging Strike, but it can outrun it and kill it in one return, and in one hit in return, and also it's just not super needed to be like super healthy all the time, but you don't really want to rely a ton on Dragon Pulp for Urshifu-Rapid Strike in all honesty. But yeah, no, a lot of solid checks and counters to it. Like there's a whole 6 Pokemon I'd say qualify as either we've got 4 counters and we've got like 5 counters and 1 check here, honestly. So yeah, I'd say that goes a super long way. And then there's also like Pokemon that could punish it. For example, if you Surge Strike into a Ferrothorn or Rocky Helmet Skarmory or even a Rocky Helmet Como-O, then you're basically dead. You're taking over half of your health, and then you have to switch out, and it's not good for you. You can actually just technically trade with Skarmory, which is fine. A lot of times that's what happens against Skarmory teams that lack in Amoonguss and Toxapex, but oftentimes those are common partners as well. It's a bad time. So yeah, and then there's also Primarina and Slowking, which are the walls, the stabs, but Primarina, again, it's going to get, it's only a one-time check, whereas Slowking, you need to worry about U-turns, so have to be very careful. So I think it's actually a really promising prospect in the metagame right now in my eyes. I think it's an underrated Pokemon, but more on that another time. All in all, I think Urshifu-Rapid Strike is just okay, not great. There's a lot of checks and counters to it. There's a lot of ways to punish it, but it also has a high ceiling, and in games where you're not prepared for it, it's going to be devastatingly strong. So yeah, definitely let me know your thoughts on Urshifu-Rapid Strike. Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? Do you think it should stay OU or fall eventually? Personally, I think it should definitely stay OU, but it's not great. It's just okay. And let me know your thoughts on Urshifu-Single Strike. I think it's one of, if not the best Pokemon in the metagame, and it's probably broken. We should look into suspecting or banning it in the near future. Just too limited. I really hate how there's so much Clefable. But yeah, no, let me know your thoughts, and have a great day, guys. All right, peace.